everyone, my name is Amber Gross and I am the Child Youth Supervisor for the YMCA of Greater Halifax Dartmouth.
Hi everyone, my name is Veronique Griffin and I am the Business Advisor at the Center for Entrepreneurship, Education and Development.
And we would like to welcome you to
Black is the New
Black, virtually. So we have a night full of events and lovely panelists, and we're so happy that you can join us live tonight.
Our theme for tonight is Black History Matters. Listen, learn, share, act. And we're so happy you can join us in this conversation.
So again, this is our second annual Black is the New Black, and we're so thankful that you can be a part of us this year, and hopefully next year we will be in person.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laurie Day, and I'm going to be singing the Black National Anthem for Black History Month. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing our song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing our song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who has brought us thus far on the way, Thou who has by Thy might led us into the light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Lest our feet stray from the places, our God, where we met Thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget Thee. Shadow beneath Thy land, may we forever stand, true to our God, true to our native land.
Hi, my name is Craig McMullen. I'm the President and CEO of the Center for Entrepreneurship, Education and Development, or CEED. CEED delivers innovative programs and services that empower individuals and communities to achieve their full potential, and that is why we are proud to be a sponsor of the Black is the New Black and the Men in Black events. I'm thrilled to support the young and upcoming members of our vibrant BIPOC community, and we hope that in doing so, CEED can play a small part in enabling a vibrant and more inclusive entrepreneurial Nova Scotia.
Hi everyone. everyone. My name is Laurie Turnbull, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the YMCA of Greater Halifax Dartmouth. And on behalf of the Y, I would like to welcome everyone who's joining us online this evening for our second annual Black is the New Black event. Black History Month is an opportunity to celebrate Black Canadians and their contributions to life in Canada. As a values-based organization serving a broad and diverse community, the YMCA is actively listening and learning to better understand the needs of our community so that together we can strive for a better tomorrow for everybody. So congratulations on your incredible evening ahead. Be sure to laugh and learn, and hopefully in 2022 we can all be together again in person to raise a glass to celebrate. Have a great evening.
Hi everyone, welcome to Black is the New Black. My name is Veronique Griffin and I'm the Business Advisor at the Center for Entrepreneurship, Education and Development. I am so happy to have you join us virtually tonight. I will first start with the land acknowledgement. Before anything else, we wanted to take a moment to notice and welcome all the ways that we are showing up. All of our stories and the pieces of us. We turn to see each other. We center the spirits and the people of the Mi'kmaq Nation, who always have and continue to care for this land. We live and share unsurrendered Mi'kmaq territory governed by the peace and friendship treaties. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq and the Maliseet people first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Maliseet title and established the rules for what was to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Today, we are in Cherry Brook, Nova Scotia, which was settled and built by the people of African ancestry in the 18th and 19th centuries. The Black loyalists who fought on the side of the Britain during the American War of Independence. The Maroons who fought the Spanish and British in Jamaica, and Southern American Black refugees who fought on the side of the British during the War of 1812. These ancestors were formative in building of Government House, Citadel Hill, and participated in the Canadian Armed Forces and the settlement of Africville, amongst many other achievements and advancements that have contributed to the development of Nova Scotia as we know it today. We first and foremost are welcomed in this way. We welcome your bodies, your minds, and your hearts, those to whom this space is comfortable and familiar, and those to whom it's uncomfortable and a real stretch. We welcome people of all races, ethnicities, identities, and all beautiful combinations thereof. Two-spirit people, trans and cisgender, women and men, gender, queer people, and any other language that validates your gender identity. People of all shapes and sizes and of all ages. You rooted in cultures and histories from all around the world, and you who are rootless. We welcome people of all learning styles, introverts, extroverts, and those between and combination thereof. We welcome people who are single, partnered, married, or dating. Artists, poets, musicians, creatures of creation. Entrepreneurs, risk takers, and innovators. We welcome you. We welcome your families, those who support us to be here, your elders and ancestors, those in your lives, and those who have passed on. But we welcome all of you, your real magic, that Black girl magic. We welcome it. Anyone else? There are many of you who may not have been named, but we welcome you into this space. We are all in this together. Thank you.
Well, hello everyone listening to us live this evening. Again, like Berenice said, we are in Cherry Brook, Nova Scotia. My name is Amber Gross. I am the Child Needs Supervisor for the YMCA of Greater Halifax, Dartmouth. We are going to get the conversation started, and I just want to thank everyone who signed up in advance through Eventbrite. Everyone listening live, we will be accepting questions, so please continue to have the conversations through the chat. We are listening, we are looking, and there will be time for a question-answer period. We also have a door prize for you from a lot of local Black businesses and also from Seed Nova Scotia and the YMCA and the Black Business Initiative and, of course, the Black Cultural Center. So we will be doing that sometime this evening in the program. My job today is to start us off. So we have 4 lovely panelists. To my right, we have Shania Sparks from North Preston, Nova Scotia. To my far right, we have Shana Court, and she will be explaining her title tonight. Then to my left, we have Nathiel Batisse, and to my far left, we have Jasmine Parent. So I'm going to start with our first question. And then the panelists will introduce themselves further. Our first question tonight is the theme. So the theme this year for across Nova Scotia is Black History Month Matters. Listen, learn, share, and act. So I'm going to ask you ladies, what does that mean to you? Is there any aspect of the theme that means something strongly to you, and why? So I'll start with my right, with Shania Sparks.
So I think listen, learn, and what was the other one?
Share.
And share. I think for me it's super important. The listen aspect is super important for me, just because I feel like Black History Month is a time that we really need to sit down and not only listen to the history, but listen to our elders and really get in touch with the stories and the struggles that they have went through. And also listening to our youth, like our children. I have a 9-year-old son. Listening to what Black History Month means to him, and just sharing and understanding how they see it and how they see themselves and their ancestors.
Thank you. Shana.
So listen, learn, share, and act. All 4 components actually hold very dear to me, and I think that they show a progression of growth. First, I think if you think about listen, you can listen to what someone's saying or listen to problems, but you can also stop there. But if you don't stop there and you take it a step further and then you learn, you can go and do some research about the problems and the issues that are happening in the community. And that's a level of growth. But instead of stopping there, you can then continue on to share that, to create a movement, to start to let other people know about those issues and then start to grow outwards and grow that movement. And again, you can stop there, but if you go and now act upon it, that shows another level of growth. And the acting part for me is what's essential, because that's what myself and my partner, Chad Samuel, are trying to do now with our current business. It's to actually act and to impact. So we listen, we learn, we share, and now we're trying to make an impact. And so I think all 4 of those really hold dear to me and show a level of growth.
Thank you.
So with listen, learn, share, and act, it's very close to the current life stage that I'm at. I'm going through a transition where I am focusing on decolonizing my own mindset of what I've been taught throughout my life. And the whole process of decolonizing yourself, because we all live in a society where we are colonized. It doesn't matter what skin color you are or anything like that. We have been taught through the education system. Our society has ran to have this dependence on being colonized. So with that being said, I would have to add that I'm in the process of unlearning to learn, to share, and then to act. And that's really like I said, the current life stage that I'm at. I have to know how to do this for the job that I'm in, but I also have to do this for my future family and generations to come after. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Jasmine?
So I think when I hear this year's theme, I immediately think about, really the current climate that we're in right now within society. And I hear the theme and I actually think of it kind of in a different way, in that it's less for us as people of color and more for those who aren't, and that they need to be listening and learning and sharing, and then most importantly, like Shania said, acting. Right, and that, Black History Month comes every year, and, as people of color, we do a lot of the work, right? We do we give people things to listen to. We do a lot of the sharing. We do the acting. We're educating people, right? But we're also at a point where more people are starting to listen, which is nice. But I think as a people, we're also at a point where it's starting to become a little tiresome to continue to have to educate people on things that we've been shouting from the rooftops for years, right? So when I hear that theme, I like to think and I hope that it rings true, and, it kind of lights a fire for people who maybe, Black History Month comes along every year. It's just another thing they tick off, in the curriculum and then move on. So I like to think that hopefully that there's more listening going on, more learning, and most importantly, more action.
Thank you. And can you please reintroduce yourself and kind of tell us your titles and kind of tell the world about us? So we'll start with you, Jasmine.
Yes, sure. So my name is Jasmine Parent. I am a nutrition coach and a fitness coach for my own business. I Am Worthy Wellness. I was originally a social worker, and I've kind of switched from my roles and became an entrepreneur and started this business after my own health and wellness journey, and I now have the privilege to interact with my online community and provide health and wellness support virtually to my clients that way.
Okay. My name is Nathiel Batisse. I am a counselor with Acadia First Nation. Acadia First Nation is divided up in a series of First Nation communities that range from HRM all the way down to the south shore of Yarmouth. And then we have our off-reserve population that's spread out all through Nova Scotia. I did just recently get elected, so I was the only new person that was elected, and I am the youngest sitting member. Prior to that, I was a financial advisor with RBC, and I did a lot of work with children in foster care. So if you ask me what are my passions, it's financial education and working with our youth, and those are what I bring forth to the role that I'm currently in.
So my name is Shania Sparks. I've been in the makeup industry now for over 8 years. I worked at MAC Cosmetics for 5 years. And I just recently, about the last year, kind of embarked on more the health and really taking care of my health and my fitness journey. I also am a part of a parent group for the school, and I'm also a part of the staff board for the school as well.
And my name is Shania Court. I'm 24 years old. 7 years ago, I moved to Halifax from Antigua to pursue my Bachelor of Science. And following my degree, I applied for the master's program, and 2 years in, I rolled over to the PhD program. So I'm currently completing my doctoral degree. And I co-founded a business with my partner, Chaz Samuel, back in 2019. It's called No Days Off Apparel, Inc. And the movement actually started in our home country, Antigua, in the summer of 2019. Chaz, he hosted a basketball camp for the youth in Antigua in a small village. And what started off as 1 or 2 kids actually grew to about 30 kids by the end of the summer. And so Chaz was truly inspired by their determination, their grit, their motivation, and even the parents who came at the end of the summer to thank him for exuding confidence in their child on the court. And so Chaz came to me and he asked me, well, how can we represent their inward feelings externally? And so I developed our logo, and in November of 2019, we incorporated the business, and now we're running that business here in Halifax.
Nice. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing a little bit of your story with us. I'm going to kind of switch gears a little bit because you guys talked about how you own your own business, how you made some life transitions. And so my question for everyone is, what do you wish you knew before you started your first business? So I know that I'm going to start at Jasmine because you're smiling at me. So I know that you run your own business and it embarked, or you came upon it because of your fitness journey, and you made that transition from social work. So what's some things that you wish you knew before you had started?
I think one of the biggest things I wish that I had known, and I mean, I guess maybe I knew it, but I hadn't, consciously thought about it, was that you're going to mess up, you're going to make major mistakes, and it's going to be a good thing, right? Because often we think of, making mistakes as such a negative thing, and one of the things that, I've worked on a lot with my own self-development, and I work on with my clients, is like reframing our thoughts and reframing the way that we view the things that happen to us, and think about, what can we learn from this? So I think back to starting in 2019 and all of the things that happened, and tears and having to go back and maybe wasted money and all kinds of different things. But now, 2 years later, I've learned so much from those mistakes. And every time I start, a new project, or I change something within the business, I'm able to take what I learned from those mistakes and make sure it doesn't happen again and grow from that. So I think that's something I wish maybe someone would have said to me. It said, you're going to mess up, but that's going to be okay because you're going to learn from that.
Thanks. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to ask Shania that same question as well, because I know you and Chaz, you guys decided to start this business at home and then transition it to Halifax. What are some things that in that transition you think you would have learned or would have done differently?
So I think, so Chaz and I were still pretty new to the business life and the business world, but I think the one thing that we've learned is the importance of connecting and building your network. I think that has a major impact on the growth of your business. Sometimes people get into business to try to make a quick buck really quickly, but forget about the actual importance of growing your network. And so I think one thing that Chaz and I are learning is the value in making connections, meeting people, and growing your network in order to have a very substantial business that can go on beyond just the money, but continue to impact. And so I think making those connections and building up your network is something that we have learned the value in that.
Thanks. Nathiel or Shania, do you have anything else to add to that?
I feel like, because I've been working for myself for a very long time, and I also worked in a business. I feel like I wish I would have known sooner to push my own agenda, not only pour my heart into what I do at work, as in the store, but pour it into my own business. And really, I wish I would have focused harder on just running my own show instead of pushing the agenda for somebody else's business.
I really like that, Shania. So how do you think we as young women who are either have a side hustle and we're kind of doing things on the side, plus we're working in a business, how do you think we can push our own agenda and our own goals? And that's open to everyone if they have any input.
I think we have to prioritize, we have to get our priorities straight. And that is hard to do, and sometimes there's a risk in that, or you feel that there's a risk, but I think we all know that, without great risk, right, where's the reward? Yeah. Right, you have to be willing to step outside of that comfort zone, and it's comfortable to work that 9 to 5 when somebody else signs your checks, and that's, that it's coming, right? You don't have to be the one to do it, but there's some freedom when you do step outside of the box a little bit, and you're able to, like you said, Shania, push your own agenda, right? And you'll never know, right? It sounds a little corny, but you don't know how far you can go unless you try. And it's like baby steps. You try one thing new, and maybe you think it's going to be too much, and maybe you'll soar, and then you can add something else to your plate and keep, just keep pushing it a little bit.
Yeah. I'd like to add on to that, just because when I had decided that I was going to step into politics, I'm not a politician at all, but I had to tell myself when that decision that I had to make by saying, okay, you know what, I'm going to campaign, so I'm going to step out there. Did I know any of our members besides my family or maybe the Yarmouth Reserve? No. So I had to mentally put myself into that space. And you really just had to let go and let God at that point. And you just had to continue to just say each day, wake up, you have to try to find 2 or 3 people. And the hardest thing with the campaign was I was able to attain a list of names, but not a list of addresses. So I was working with a list that had 1,700 names on it. I'm on Facebook, I'm doing this, I'm trying to, and all of that was completely out of my comfort zone, going house to house to house. Some days I'd wake up at 8 and I wouldn't be leaving the last person's house until midnight, and I did that for almost a year prior to COVID included, so I couldn't put it on record. But I had to stay in that mentality no matter how hard. Sometimes I was getting pulled out of it, and that's really pushing your own agenda is what I had to do, and there's a reward by doing it. So.
Anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah, maybe I'll also add, because in hearing your story, it kind of reminds me of myself. There's a lot of things that I have on my plate just besides my degree and also running the business with Chaz. I'm a neuroscience tutor, and I'm also a caregiver to an elderly woman who has cerebral palsy. So I think in terms of what you also said, in terms of prioritizing and also finding balance. So with pushing your agenda, but finding balance in all the other things that you're juggling in your life, and then developing a mindset that can help you to do that, to motivate you to get through. And I think that NGO has done that for me too. It's motivated me to create this mindset that gets me through all the things that I have going on and balancing.
Thank you. The next question. How can we support women in business, whether at our own company or in the community, or if we are entrepreneurs for someone else? So for instance, if you're working still for someone else, but you are still making business moves. So how do you think you all are supporting women of color in business?
I believe that the very first step that we have to do is acknowledge how amazing it is for women to be in business. Looking at history, it's not that far in history. Like, we have grandparents that had to go through things where they couldn't be the ones that could push the agenda, kind of like how we are today. So first you have to acknowledge that, and you have to give power to that, because every single person who is out there doing their own business, doing really just doing their own hustle or things like that, they're doing that without that background or having that push or that generations of wealth and things like that. So first, acknowledge that, see the power in that, and then once you see that power in that, continue to give that power. So in any type of way, whether it's you're going to say you're doing amazing or you're going to physically support them, I think that's the most important thing, is we have to make sure that we're giving that energy back out there, so then we can step away from the political side of businesses and just kind of just support our women in all the things that they're pushing to do.
Yeah, and I just want to piggyback off of what Nathiel said. So, she said just to say you're doing amazing, and I think, that question we could think of, amazing ways to support people, but also small acts of kindness and small acts of support go a long way for someone in their business, and then also for them internally, right? If someone says to me, or you say to someone, you're doing a really great job, that might be all they need to hear to give them that push to get through the week, to start that new project, to do a little research on something they've been maybe think of, playing with, right? So giving those small, little compliments here and there, and then also recognizing and understanding that there's enough room for all of us, right? We can all shine, and celebrating other people's success, and they're supporting yours, and have that team mentality, and that we can all shine, right? And especially I think about just my business is mainly social media, liking posts, sharing them, tagging people, saving, things like that will boost, that's free, right? It's free to do that, to show support. So, people do that for me, and that's amazing, and I do that back to them, and I think that just small acts of kindness can go a really long way.
And I think I might jump in here as well. And events like this, just getting women together, I think has such a big impact. And I'm so grateful to be here amongst these other panelists and hearing their stories and knowing that we go through the same struggles, we're all in this together. And like you said, Jasmine, we can all shine and we can all help each other. So I think events like this could be so impactful onto all of our lives. I'm sure after this we're going to go home and we're going to reflect on this and think about ways that we can build from here. So I think this is amazing what you guys are doing to bring us women together.
And I think not only social media, because social media is huge, but I think when you see people in everyday life, if I'm at for example with your business, if I'm at the gym, and we're talking about fitness wear, why not celebrate people that that are in the business? Or if I'm talking to a friend and they're just starting out in their journey, then I'll be like, oh my gosh, you have to go check out so-and-so's Jasmine's page or so-and-so's page, because even just to feel inspired, not only to buy but to feel inspired from your guys' page, your stories, I think it's a very good way. There's no better way than, I feel word of mouth, just sitting down and having a conversation about somebody to somebody else.
Yeah. So we all know that we're living through a worldwide pandemic. So how has that affected you in business, and how were you able to support women in business through the pandemic?
So I'll say, I think I've had maybe could be the biggest effect, because I do makeup. So there's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. I do think that it made me realize, even now, with the little bit of makeup that I do, I think that it made me realize how important it is to branch out and not just rely on, I guess, one thing, because the pandemic has taught me how quick things can be just taken away from you. So yeah, that's what I think, yeah.
I find with the pandemic, because I was campaigning during a campaign, campaigning during a pandemic, there were moments there was just moments where things were just kind of taken right from you. I had to really change my focus. I will say, I love the fact that I was able to reconnect with my daughter and then my stepson, and we were able to kind of put that focus back on the house for a little bit. And then also I really leaned on groups of friends that really helped me push to another spiritual level, because we weren't out there interacting and communicating, and here I wasn't sure if there was going to be a campaign, if there wasn't going to be a campaign. Am I going back to a 9-to-5 job? Am I not? It was so much that was just up in the air, that I really just honed in on my spirituality. And I learned the practice of replacing my negative thoughts with thoughts of God. And that's what really pushed me through. And if I didn't have that extra time that the pandemic gave us, I would probably still feel very all over the place I did. So I do have to give thanks for that, but then acknowledge that it is a pandemic. So you just have to continue praying for the world.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything to share on that point?
Maybe just a quick share.
Yeah.
So during the pandemic, I was considered still an essential worker. So I was still going into school. I was still taking care of the elderly lady. And I also want to make a point here for men supporting women. Chaz, my partner, he was very instrumental in supporting me during that time. And so I think, as you said, having a good network surrounding you, whether it be friends, family that can help you during the time, men or women that are helping you and supporting you during the pandemic. I think I want to give a thanks here to my partner who was there for me, even though things during the pandemic was still quite busy.
Yeah.
And so how do we create that network of support? So how do we build that network? What are some things that you guys have done, whether that's in your business or with your families, to build that, your support system? So when I advise clients, the first thing that I tell them when they're starting off on their journey, I'm like, okay, find your tribe, find your support system. How have you guys done that?
I've kind of shape-shifted where I have now a nation that looks up to me, as in my Mi'kmaq Nation. So I had to learn to be completely transparent. And I think that's very important, and I think as long as we're leaning in on communication skills and things like that, there was a lot of things like just, I blogged this like last year, like I'm not a blogger, but in the whole realm of keeping things transparent and knowing that I have a story and everyone else has a story, that's very important. Because we can't sugarcoat it, like how sometimes like on social media we can act like we're perfectly fine and everything's great, but we weren't. We were going through a pandemic, our whole life shifted, we had no control over it, we still don't. We can't plan next week out and it's guaranteed that those plans can go through, and I think as long as we work on our communication skills and be open to communication with other people, I think that's very important as well. And we just have to learn new ways to communicate because we don't have the face-to-face as often as we do.
Sure. Jasmine, I saw that you were going to chime in there.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, I think the best way to build your network is to know and understand that you can't do it all.
Yeah.
And to be willing to accept that and to invite people in and share their expertise, right? So I think especially in business, and when you start your own business as an entrepreneur, it is a little bit lonely, right? Or even with your partner, whomever, one or two of you, it can be a little bit lonely and isolating. And I think that's because, and I know I can speak for myself, when I first started out, I wanted to do everything, right? I wanted to do it all for myself, and I think that's my personality in general, but I know that's for a lot of people who want to start their own business, right? I think often their entrepreneurs have you could be quite strong-minded and you feel like you want to do it all, and then you take too much on your plate, then you get overwhelmed, and you're more stressed out than you need to be. So I think for me, started off leaning on my partner, who he now, he's part of the business as well, and then also branching out to other people I know, and then asking for help, right? Being able to ask for help and say, I'm not good at graphic design, for example, right? Like I'm horrible. Like I'm looking at this board here and I'm so in awe because it's so beautiful. But I love things like that. It's like if I want things to look nice, I need to reach out to someone else who I know is really great at that. Right, so being able to be humble and to admit, okay, I can't do it all, but I can ask for some help. Right, so as soon as you start to ask people for help, you'll be surprised and shocked at how many people are willing to support.
Yeah. Shania, did you want to chime in on that?
I was thinking the same thing, like just being okay with asking people for help, and just not being afraid. Like sometimes, like I think we're just so afraid of rejection that we just don't put ourselves out there as much. But I think, I think in a place of me getting older, like Jasmine said, sometimes you just really need help, or maybe you just need someone to talk to. It could be anything. So just reaching out and just feeling like okay with reaching out and not feeling like you're bothering anyone because you just want to ask a question or you just want to talk to somebody.
Yeah. So, next question. What do you like about living here? Living here in Nova Scotia, living here on the East Coast, living here. Some grew up here, some aren't from here. So what do you love or like about living here and especially starting your businesses here? And who would like to go first?
Maybe I'll start.
Sure.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, I'm not from here. I'm from Antigua, which is an island, and I migrated here 7 years ago. One thing that I love about Atlantic Canada and Nova Scotia, Halifax, is like the community sense. Coming from a small island, it's very community sense. Everyone knows everyone, everyone's supporting everyone. And so coming here, I kind of had that same feel. And that's really why my heart fell in love with Nova Scotia. And it kind of goes back to the support. And I want to just put a shout out here that Chaz and myself we had gotten a lot of support through different organizations here in Halifax. So for instance, the Black Business Initiative, who has helped us with our No Days Off Apparel Inc. and getting us networks and supporting us, as well as the St. Mary's Entrepreneurship Center. They've been a massive support for us too. So I think that leads to another reason why I love it here so much is the community, but also the support that you can find if you just do the research. And so that I have to say, I'm absolutely in love with the city and with my life here.
Yeah, and I would say the same in the sense of that I mean, there's good and bad to that everybody knows everybody, kind of word of mouth travels really fast, right? That's maybe another conversation, but that it can be very positive as well, right? And that, you know, I'll see somebody in the mall and they'll say, "Are you Jasmine?" And I can start a conversation because it's not that big of a place. And you'll meet somebody and they'll say, "Do you know so-and-so?" And right, so I think that, like you said, that smaller community feel can be very beneficial when you're trying to start out because, like Shania was saying earlier, word of mouth can take you very far.
There's also a lot of like rich history here, and we all have the possibility to make change here because there's a lot of change that does need to be done here. We can't sugarcoat it. We can't continue to look down at the South and not in our backyard, but the possibility of making impactful changes is something that is alive and well here. And like I said, like even outside of Halifax, if you're looking at all the other communities, every single community, there's just so much rich history. And there is openness to a degree, but you're able to establish yourself in what path you want to do. So I think that's really important.
Thank you.
And I think for me, I would say community because I was raised in a community. I think for me, now that I have kids, I love growing up in a community, but now that I'm older and I see how much like love, support, and like just happiness that comes from being around people that just love you. So for me, having kids now, like I push my hardest for my kids to be able to like just feel that love because I've realized in becoming an adult, not everybody has that like the back push or like the next door neighbor that's rooting for you or the aunt down the street that just cares about you and cares about your kids and just wants to see you do well. Yeah.
So all of you mentioned youth in some aspect of your lives. So moving forward, now that you all are young adults, our exact was for 18 to 35, but there's a lot of young people out there who are trying new things. There's a lot of young people who are also going through a pandemic. What is some advice you could give to a young person nowadays, a young person of color, a young female? What can you say to them?
Let go and let God. It's like my motto. I particularly, youth is a huge focus of my life. One of my portfolios within my job is with youth. It's also with physical activity, but with youth, I think it's very important that we maintain communication, have them feel safe to have communication, but literally I understand it's a very tough time when they're supposed to be experiencing the most freedom, they've got it taken away from them. When we think back to us being kids, it was great. No bills, you could run around and stuff, but they don't have that right now. So we have to acknowledge that. And we can't just assume that they know how to adjust to something like that. So like I said, just let go of holding on so strong and just live in the moment and learn how to live in the moment, because there's things that you can appreciate even if you can't see it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And I was going to say, so I've been a basketball coach for many, many years, since I was 12 or 13, and then I've coached onto provincially and university level as well. And so coaching youth, and then also have been director for Camp Kudu Chagalia for 3 or 4 years, which is a leadership camp for Black youth at Acadia University. And I think about those youth, so they're age 13 to 18, and kind of the premise of that camp every year is to think about what you want to do in the future. And one of the things I would always tell them, and this rings so true for me now from my own experiences, is to not box yourself in, right? I think especially teens, they have all this pressure and they feel all this stress, and people are always asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up, right? And I'm 32 years old, and I just changed 2 years ago what I spent 7 years in university preparing to do, and then it took a year to completely change all of that, and now I'm on a completely different path. Right, so I like to say, don't box yourself in. Don't think, oh well, so and so did this, and this might be good for money, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do this, right? I mean, of course, if you really are passionate about something, go for it, but also don't feel like you have to commit at the age of 18 or 19, or even in your 20s, for that matter. Right? Don't feel like you have to commit to something and that be the only thing that you're going to do, because the possibilities are endless.
Thank you.
I think just not reminding our youth not to give up, reminding them that there's no time limit. Jasmine was saying, there's no race. The race is always with yourself. So just reminding them that you don't, just not giving up, and just keep pushing. Even when you don't want to push, just keep pushing.
Yeah, I think I'll just piggyback on that. It's that determination. It's just to keep going. If you have a passion, if you have a goal, I think it's important to just keep pushing towards your goal. And that's what Chaz and I want to create with our brand, is that no days off mindset, mentality, that you can reach to that goal as long as you work hard. And we all know the saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? It took planning, it took execution, and sometimes we want things super fast, but sometimes that's just not how it works. And the hard work will actually pay off. You just have to be patient and keep pushing.
Yeah, I think those are such great points. I like that Jasmine talked about pivoting. I like that, Nathiel, you talked about your strong faith and foundation. And I like that you guys talked about this whole essence of community. And so when we think about our community and how our community can grow, when you think about your roles within the community, how do you, with your roles, how do you tell younger people to get involved in community? How can we get younger people involved in communities and initiatives like this, or anything that you think they would benefit from?
So I guess I'll start. Growing up, I feel like I've always had role models of people that I looked up to, but in my teenage, early adult years, I never felt like I had to. I never pushed to be in the community. I never pushed to be helping youth in the community. I just didn't see myself in that role. I think the thing that changed for me big time is having kids, having a son, having my 9-year-old, and seeing even in our school system how our kids are so they're just stolen from the day that they walk into the door. And I think that really pushed me, not only as a member of the community, but as a parent, to be no, this is not only, it's all of our responsibility. It's the community's responsibility. It's my responsibility, not only to my son, but all the kids that are, all the kids that are around. So I feel now my push and my drive for youth is so much higher, because I never realized how much the world is there to just beat our kids down. Just from the first day they walk into primary, they're just you know what? We're just not going to teach them much of anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's.
And earlier when I had said we were taught to be colonized, that's really what I was referring to, is the fact that our children enter into school systems, they go to sporting events, everything. And once you, for my daughter, it was the year she spent in the house was the best year. And then once I had to push her to go to daycare and things like that, you had that fear that it's okay, now it's going to be someone else that's going to start putting stuff onto you, and their perspectives are going to start influencing you and things like that. And that's a very scary thing. And that's really, like, you can't pinpoint it. We've all grown up in the school system. We've all been taught a certain way. We all know how it feels that your African studies class was nothing too important. So we've all lived through those moments, and our kids are going to grow in those moments as well. I think one major thing, and I am saying this from a perspective of a political standpoint, because that's what I'm currently doing right now, but there was a time when Barack Obama came to Halifax, and he was sitting there and he was telling all of us, like, we need youth, we need you guys to step up, we need you guys to do that. And it was like, I was sitting there, I was like, you know what, I'm going to step up, I'm going to do it. And I advertised myself as building up my brand that I'm a youth doing this. And the fact that I was able to get elected into a system where people don't normally get elected in. We've had the same office. Some people have been holding the role for over 30 years. It was the message that I had to relay back is like, hey, people in the community want you to step up. They need you to step up. Your ideas are wonderful. You sit a kid down and you say, hey, come up with a video game. They're going to come up with some great video game, like, and you could sit there amazed just by their way of thinking. And you have to tap into that, and we have to allow kids to be able to express that. We can't place them in a box. We can't tell them, like, oh, when you grow up, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be this. It's like, no, you have to see what their natural talents are, and you work on that. But the most important thing that we can do as being on the older side of the youth spectrum is show what we're doing and show how it's needed and how we're doing it, and promoting that society needs our youth to step up and become who they want to be, whatever channel it is or anything like that. But no one's going to hold you down. At this point, we're an aging society, and our youth are the ones that are going to be taking care of us. So we need to be giving them the opportunities.
Yes. And I think piggybacking on that, because you did bring up talent, that really helped to touch me, because one of the things that Chaz and I want to do with NDO is to actually create a space to cultivate talent of these young kids. And so one of our initiatives is to actually create a facility in Antigua, a sports facility, because currently there are no indoor courts in Antigua. Everything is concrete floors or concrete basketball courts and outdoor basketball courts. So we want to actually create an indoor facility that will help to cultivate the young talent that's in Antigua. And I think creating those spaces and setting an example is super important for the youth.
I agree. Does anybody have anything else to add?
I think too, Veronique, you said, how do we encourage, right, our youth to, do these things and maybe want to get into business and maybe, feel like they're empowered. And I think holding, having space for them in organizations, different organizations like this, and having events for them to come that are at their level, right? So instead of, I think sometimes things happen and, youth will feel like, well, that's just for old people, right? Whether it's 25 and up, if that's old, whatever it is, right? But I think about, the first time, and also, making sure that it feels like a safe space, and being willing to ask youth for their expertise. They're the experts. Right, and what it is to be a youth in this day and age. We can all think, well, yeah, I was 16 once or I was 17 once. It's like, yeah, but you weren't 17 in 2020 and during a pandemic and in this age and with this level of social media and et cetera, there's so much has changed, right? So they're the experts, right? So in knowing that and in fostering that in them, and I think about the first time I ever felt in a really safe space and felt like I could become myself was when I was 14 years old, and I grew up in the Annapolis Valley, and the only other black people I saw were my family, my siblings. And the first time I ever felt heard and seen and important on a level of, as an individual was when I was 14 and I went to Camp Kuju Chagalia, the camp that I later went on to be the director of, which is an awesome story for me. But that was a camp where it was just for African Nova Scotian youth and only African Nova Scotian leaders. And that was the focus, right? So I think holding safe space especially for youth of color, of Indigenous students, so that they can feel safe and that they can be themselves, because, we know, unfortunately, often when you don't look like the majority, you don't feel as safe. And there is a level of safeness when you are with your people.
Yeah.
Right? And that's important, I think, for you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that, Jasmine. I think having everybody in this space, and there's just something when you walk into a space and everybody looks like you.
Yeah.
Like, it's just magical and it just feels different, especially when I'm from an island. I'm from the Bahamas, so I'm used to seeing people look like me.
Right.
And so when I came here and I didn't see people that looked like me, I was like, oh, where's my community? Where's my tribe? And so I'm just like appreciative that we're all in this space, just sharing stories and just holding space. So I thank you guys for that. I'm going to open up the questions to everybody that's watching. We're going to do a short Q&A before we do our last question. But I will have everybody, if you're in the chat and if you're listening, if you'd like to chat and type in any questions, if you can do that, that would be perfect. And I will ask you our last questions before we go into the Q&A. And my question for everyone is, what does it mean to be a Black, Indigenous person of color? And why do you think events in space like this matter? So for you personally, what does it mean to be Black or Indigenous?
Well, I get the honors of being Black and Indigenous. And everyone's going to think I'm this very philosophical type of person, but I remember my first time having an annual meeting at RBC. My manager sat down with me and she had said to me, she's like, you're like the deadly three. And I was like, what's the deadly three? And she's like, you're Black, you're Indigenous, and you're a woman. And I have found that throughout every life stage, someone has brought that up to me in a different way. And then 3 years later, another manager brought that up to me and said, well, if you wanted to, you could take over the business because you have the three things that you can really use to push yourself to a new limit. And when I was campaigning, an elder sat down with me and she said the exact same thing. She's like, you're a woman. Well, at first she's like, so Nathiel. And I was like, yes. I didn't know her. So Nathiel. She's like, so I thought about you. And I said, yeah. And she's like, you're a bridge. And I was like, I'm a bridge. And I didn't know what that meant. And she's like, you're a bridge between being a woman, being Indigenous, and being Black. And she said that I hold this responsibility to invite other women to know what it's like to be Black, invite other Black women to know what it's like to be Indigenous, and invite Indigenous people to know what it's like to be a woman. And I just came to realize that that trend is just following me throughout my life, that I am these three things throughout this life, and I have to use it to my advantage, and I have to use it to the advantage of our community, for the betterment of our community and the betterment of the 7 generations that are going to follow after us. But I think that's the most beautiful thing, is in this lifetime we are women and we are Black, and it is so powerful to just be that right now. It was so much harder to be this 40 years ago, but to be this right now, it's such an advantage. It's so powerful, and we just have to own that we were blessed to be a Black woman or Black, Indigenous, or a person of color in this lifetime.
Anybody else want to tackle the question of what it means? I know it's a hard question.
Yeah.
It's I'm kind of this every day, so I didn't really think about it. But yeah, so anybody else want to tackle that question? What does it mean to be Black? What's your Black experience, or Indigenous or person of color?
I think for me, being a Black, like being Black in general, it means power. Like, I feel like I grew up in a society where I always felt small. Like, I always felt like, you know, like, she's this little Black girl. Like, I felt like I wanted to be everybody besides myself. Like, so now I feel like Black means power. Like, I'm happy we're at a point where we can just celebrate ourselves and be proud of celebrating ourselves. Like, I wish that, like, people like my grandmother could live in a society where they just felt proud and powerful just to be themselves and just celebrate it.
Yeah, I think for me, like what Veronique said, I grew up on an island that was predominantly Black. You look around and you're seeing people like yourself. And it wasn't until I came here and I started my university journey that I started realizing the numbers in university that people who look like me are not as much as back home. But more on a serious note, especially as I moved up further in my degree, those numbers became less and less. And now that I'm doing my doctoral program, there's very few Black women in my faculty. But I think what it does mean is to lead by example. And I participated in an event that was hosted by Dalhousie's Plans, promoting leadership in health for African Nova Scotians, where I was a camp leader, something similar to like what you said. And it was an event that was for high school students who were interested in the health profession. And I was so honored to be a part of that event and showing that you can do it. You can reach to the doctoral, to the medical, to the whatever, you know, level or heights that you want to get to. And to be an example for those kids was a true honor. Because when I look around in my degree, I don't see that. And I think, you know, trying to start from the youth in order to see more people like us in these higher degrees is quite important. So I think for me, it was quite an honor to be a part of that program and to be a leader in that aspect. So I think it means leading by example.
And I just wanted to touch on a thing as well. You folks who are from the islands, just seeing folks who look like you. I'm also from a community. I am a descendant of the Preston Township. So both having family in East Preston, North Preston, and Cherry Brook, I also grew up with people who look like me. So it does feel powerful to grow up and have spaces like this, like you folks said, and just to see we're clearly doing something right. So I'm very thankful to have you folks here. I wanted to let everyone know who's joining us live that we do have James. We mentioned him briefly, but he has been taking some notes graphically. So he's been our graphic facilitator, and I just wanted the live audience just to take a moment just to look and see what he's captured for us. It is definitely a skill set that I don't have, and it's so awesome. But I just wanted to shout you out, James. Thank you so much. And sometimes, like, this is the new way of learning. Not everyone can learn this way, so it's nice to have a visual representation. And obviously, we know a conversation is just a conversation. The ACT piece is something that we've talked about, so hopefully not just in the month of February, but throughout the year, because we've all talked about it, we all have the same color. Hopefully we have more spaces and that we can take space and to have things like this. So we are going to take the moment to do our raffle draw. So again, everyone who has signed up through Eventbrite, their names are in a draw. We also have our basket. I'll get Berenice to show the basket here. We have a yoga mat from the Lord Nelson Hotel. We have a t-shirt from No Days Off, a bag from the YMCA, some stuff from Family Over Fame, a crystal, and I'm sure way more goodies. So it is a nice basket, and let's do the draw. I'm probably going to get one of my panelists to draw the numbers so that everyone can see it's not me.
You want me to pass it?
Alrighty. So, our winner is Teray Ford. So, Teray, if you are listening, we do have this awesome gift basket for you. So, congratulations. We are clapping. Awesome. So, one question here from the panelists that came through a text is, what are you doing next on social media, and how are you making the change through your businesses through social media? Jasmine, would you like to start?
I think for me, it's about acting, speaking up, and action looks different for everybody and whatever your space is. But for me, it's about bringing awareness and talking about things and not shying away from things that you think are going to be controversial or that people won't like, and having those tough conversations. And sometimes people, if you talk about race, or to say as a Black person, right? It's like we all know this. Right? You see me, you know that I am a Black woman. I am vocal about identifying as a Black woman. So about having those conversations, and when things go on in the world, talking about them, sharing about them, learning about them myself, and not just sharing anything you see, right? Yeah. But doing your research and taking the time to educate people. I don't think you absolutely have to, but I think that it's important that if you do have a network of people, that you don't shy away from that. That it's important to speak what is on your heart and speak what's on your mind, and make sure that other people know what's going on, because I think too often, specifically if we're talking about social media, I think too often people shy away from talking about things that they think will bother people or make people not like them. And what I always say to people is that if somebody doesn't like what you have to say about something that specifically involves someone's life or their right to live or their right to thrive, that those aren't people that you want to like you anyway.
Right.
So, right.
Yeah.
Social media.
I agree with everything that you said. Yeah, I think that being vocal is really the biggest thing. Like, you have to speak up, and I feel like as Black women, we have to speak up. You have to educate the people that are watching you so that they do better in their everyday life. So yeah, I think that everything that Jasmine said is spot on.
Sorry, I want to say one other thing. I think too, putting your money where your mouth is, basically, right? Yeah. So, quick example in that, when back in June of 2020, specifically if we're talking about social media, I left quite a few partnerships that were very lucrative for me and for my business, and I did that because I felt that our, morals did not align, and that was a decision that I made. That yes, financially that was going to be a huge hit to me and to my family, but if morally I can't get behind you, then there's no more relationship here. So I think it's important that if you're going to be telling people that you feel one way and that you support a movement and that you are for the people, that you need to be willing to leave things behind that don't support your values and your morals as well, because I think that speaks volume.
And I just want to say this. I think that, big ups on you for even sharing that, because I think there's so many other people out there that need to see that it's okay not to agree with how you feel like somebody isn't stepping up, or if they're not saying something. Right. There's so many people that would have just been like, oh well, but I need this for my family, so I'm not going to leave. Right. So the simple fact that you spoke up, and I mean, you never said anything bad or negative about anyone, but just speaking up and saying, you know what, our time is up, I'm going to go my separate way, and then just going. Yeah.
So true. So we are coming to a close, but my last question for everyone, I want you to think of what just took place, reflect on it, and sit on it for a minute. Too long. And I want you to come up with one word or one phrase to describe your experience. And I'll start with mine first to give you a little bit more time to think about it.
Okay.
Mine is probably 2 words: grateful and blessed. That's how I'm feeling.
I'm feeling empowered.
That was mine.
Empowered part 2.
I would say inspired.
Yeah.
I really think mine would be strength.
I I would be motivated. Yeah, I joked with you, Bernice, in the beginning and saying I was just excited to be out of the house and talk to people over the age of 5. But this is connecting with other people, women and women of color specifically is one of my most favorite things, and just the way, like with becoming a mom, I have 3 kids, and I started the business and the pandemic. There's not been a lot of that, right? Being able to connect and be with people, and I feel like after tonight I'm going to go home and probably start my own notes, just for your brain starts, the wheel starts to turn, right? And when you talk and hear other people's stories, it just starts to really get you motivated and feel inspired. Yeah.
It's just a nice feeling. I know I've been getting goosebumps all night, so perfect. Before I invite Amber up, I would just like to once again thank our sponsors. We are currently in the Black Cultural Center in Cherry Brook in this lovely space and museum, and we'd like to thank them for hosting us and providing all of the tech behind the scenes for us. And I'd also like to give a special thank you to Riel and Russell, because they have been behind the scenes doing all of our tech stuff, and we are greatly appreciative. So thank you so much, Riel. I would also like to thank my work and institution. I work at the Center for Entrepreneurship, Education and Development. I'm a business advisor there, and they have come on board as a partner and sponsor for this event. I would also like to thank the Black Business Initiative as well as the IJ. They have also been a partner with us in this event as well. And I would also like to thank those who supported us in our gift basket. We had apparel from No Days Off as well as Poly Drops. Our goal at Black is the New Black and Men in Black is to support local businesses, and we like to support people who look like us, and so we are very grateful that they continue to support us in our initiatives. I will now have Amber up to give her last remarks.
Yes, and I would also like to thank the YMCA of Greater Halifax Dartmouth, specifically the YMCA Community Action Network. And this idea kind of came together with a few partners, specifically the YMC. And again, just a big shout out to Russell Gross, who happens to be my dad, and Riel Williams, who is also a female of color who is doing an awesome job behind the scenes. We also have another entrepreneur, Emily Colley of Emily's Photography, and she has been taking all the photos with the last 2 events, which is awesome. And then we also have our YCAN program coordinator, Preston Simmons, who led Men in Black last night and who's also been behind the scenes. And again, anyone who hasn't mentioned, we apologize if we haven't mentioned your names. We truly thank you for this event, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank my co-host, Bernice Griffin, and we kind of came up with this together, and this is our 2nd annual virtual Black is the New Black, and it's officially closed, and thank you so much, and we cannot wait to see you in person next year. Thank you, folks, and have a great night.